Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into something pretty heavy, actually, a real tension.
Yeah, it's a big one. The source material we're looking at kicks off by calling something a flat-out oxymoron.
Right, this core conflict.
Right.
You supposedly have complete free will, choose anything.
But, and it's a huge but,
Yeah.
if you pick the wrong thing, you face, well, eternal damnation, infinite punishment.
So the question becomes, if one choice leads to unending horror, is it really a free choice at all? Seems kind of loaded.
Exactly. It suggests coercion right from the start. And our sources use this fundamental tension to explore something broader. How fear, not just fear of hell, but fear itself has been, well, weaponized by institutions for ages.
Okay, so that's our mission today, to unpack this argument from the sources. That basically controlling people through fear is just, well, easier.
Easier than inspiring them through freedom, yeah. And maybe even more crucial, this idea that heaven and hell aren't places you go, but states you create. Right here, right now, in your own mind.
Defined by perception, not destination. Okay, let's dive into that first part, the mechanics of control. Fear versus inspiration.
So the core idea presented is, like you said, it is far easier to lead through fear than through inspiration.
Why, though? Why is fear supposedly the easier path for, say, a government or an institution?
Well, feels quick. It's efficient. If you want surface-level compliance across a large group fast, fear works. It sort of bypasses the whole need for persuasion or genuine connection.
You get obedience now.
Right. But the sources argue pretty strongly that it's unstable. Control built on fear. It inherently creates resistance underneath.
Like a pressure cooker.
Exactly. It's a short-term fix because domination ultimately breeds resentment and eventually rebellion. Inspiration, though, that's different.
Equal name.
The very long game. It demands patience, time, understanding, even love, the sources say. But the change it brings about is deeper, more genuine, and lasts.
The source gives a really specific kind of visceral analogy to make this clear for you, the listener. It talks about training a pit bull.
Yeah, it's quite vivid. If you use force, brute strength, domination, you might get the dog to obey right now, out of fear.
But what you've really created is an animal that's just waiting for a chance to lash out or break free. It hasn't learned trust.
Precisely. And that same dynamic, the source argues, applies to governing people. Force and fear might get you rules followers, but you haven't actually won anyone over. You haven't earned their trust or engaged their spirit.
The source sums it up neatly. Fear controls faster, inspiration transforms deeper.
And that deeper transformation, that's often what established power structures, frankly, want to avoid. Real transformation can lead to questioning.
Which leads perfectly into the next bit. If inspiration is deeper, better in the long run, why has this fear-based model stuck around for thousands of years in like almost every major system, political or religious?
Yeah, this is where the sources get really critical of institutions. The argument is basically this. Rulers, hierarchies, they figured out a long, long time ago that managing a population of genuinely free, critical thinkers, well, it's hard work.
It's complicated.
Messy.
Very messy. So they looked for a shortcut, a way to simplify governance.
And they found it
By taking powerful, sacred teachings, things people already respected or held in awe, and deliberately weaving in threads of fear. Fear of sinning, fear of divine punishment, fear of being cast out, fear of hell.
so you make questioning the institution itself feel like you're risking your own soul.
You got it. It becomes a form of spiritual blackmail, almost. Challenging the earthly power feels like challenging God or the universe or whatever the ultimate authority is.
It's clever in a dark way. People are looking up, worried about the invisible.
And not looking too closely at the very visible people making the rules down here. The source puts it bluntly. It's just way easier to rule minds that tremble before an invisible power than it is to inspire hearts to think, love, and choose freely.
Fear keeps the existing structure humming along. It stops people from asking too many awkward questions that might upset the established order. Exactly. It channels energy into managing external threats, real or imagined, instead of fostering that inner transformation that could lead to real change.
Okay, so that whole critique of structural fear sets up a really interesting pivot in the sources. If that external control relies so heavily on fear, how do we get out from under it? The author shifts things dramatically, talking about internal reality and certainty.
They do. It's a crucial turn. The author says point blank, they don't know if heaven or hell exist as, like, actual places you go after you die. And they stress that word no.
Implying that anyone who claims to know for sure
Is engaging in what the source calls arrogance disguised as faith. It's saying, I have the absolute answer to the ultimate mystery, which kind of shuts down the whole process of seeking and questioning. It offers a false, easy certainty.
Okay, so if heaven and hell aren't necessarily physical destinations out there, if that whole eternal consequence thing is maybe more of a control tool, what are they, according to this perspective?
This is really the heart of it. Heaven and hell, they exist inside us right now.
Not places, but experiences, states of mind.
Exactly. Lived experiences, states of mind. They're not waiting for us somewhere else. We're literally living in them or creating them, moment by moment, based entirely on how we perceive what's happening around us.
That's a huge shift in responsibility for you, the listener. It means you're not just waiting for some verdict, you're actively building your reality. We create our own heaven or our own hell right here in the landscape of our perception.
Yeah, and the sources use that idea of perception really effectively. Think about, I don't know, losing a job or a relationship ending, a major life event.
Okay.
For one person, that exact same event feels like the end of the world.
Mhm.
Failure, doom, proof that life is against them. They're living in a kind of hell.
But someone else facing the identical situation.
Might see it as painful, sure, but also as an opening, a chance for something new, an opportunity to reassess, maybe even find gratitude for the nudge to change direction.
The external facts are the same, but the internal experience, their heaven or hell, is completely different.
Completely. And what makes this compelling is the author doesn't just theorize. They say they've personally lived in both.
They've experienced both states.
Yeah. They talk about days that felt like pure hell, consumed by negativity, regret, judgment, focusing only on what's wrong with the world or themselves.
And the opposite.
And moments that felt like actual heaven on earth, not because anything magical happened externally, but because they were filled with this deep gratitude, this sense of awe, just realizing how miraculous it is just to exist.
So it really drives home that point. It's not the circumstance, it's the perception that dictates the quality of the experience.
Which brings us right to the next crucial piece, the role of judgment. If our reality is shaped by perception, what's the biggest thing that messes with perception? Our relentless need to label everything.
Good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't.
Exactly. The source proposes something incredibly simple, almost radical. What is simply is without judgment. Meaning when something happens, it rains, you miss the bus, someone is rude, the raw reality is just that event occurring. Neutral.
But we don't leave it there, do we?
Almost never. We jump in immediately with judgment, and the source calls judgment the seed of separation. It's that little spark that takes the neutral fact, what is, and turns it into a demand or a complaint, what should be or what shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be raining. You shouldn't have been rude.
Right. And the second we create that gap between reality and our judgment of it, we're in conflict. We're fighting what already is.
Which sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting. That, the source argues, is the root of so much internal suffering, our self-created hell. It's this constant friction pushing against the way things actually are.
Fighting the rain for being rain.
Or fighting the past for being the past. If you could just remove the judgment, the label of good or bad, what's left isn't a catastrophe demanding outrage. It's just a situation. Maybe one that needs dealing with, but not one that needs to cause internal war.
Okay, so pulling this together for you, the listener, two huge takeaways seem to be emerging. First, shifting heaven and hell from some far-off, institutionally controlled destination to an immediate internal state you manage through perception.
Right. Big shift.
And second, the idea that a lot of our suffering comes from our own constant reflexive judgment of reality, and that finding freedom means letting go of that need to label everything.
Yeah, shedding that layer of judgment.
So what does that actually mean for daily life? How do we use this right now?
Well, the implication is that moving past that constant judgment is moving towards, well, the source calls it a higher state of awareness.
Right.
Maybe even a form of freedom from that whole fear-based control system we talked about earlier.
State where you can just see things.
Just see what is, without the immediate overlay of this is good, this is bad, this is a blessing, this is a curse. Just observing, experiencing, navigating.
Seeing reality without the filters of fear or desire or judgment constantly coloring it, operating from, I guess, a place of more trust.
Trust in the process, maybe? Trust in your ability to handle what comes. It's moving beyond the external control mechanisms and finding an internal anchor.
Now, the author is realistic. They admit this state of non-judgmental awareness sounds, well, pretty out there for most of us in modern society. They call it a dream.
They do. But then, right after calling it a dream, they drop that John Lennon quote, "I'm not the only one."
implying it's not just a fantasy.
Right. It suggests this isn't some impossible utopia, but maybe an achievable state of mind, a psychological reality that some people actually inhabit. It's possible.
Which leaves us, and you, with a pretty provocative final thought to chew on. If this freedom from judgment, this shift from reacting out of fear to just seeing reality, if that's maybe more than just a dream, who else might be out there right now living that way?
And maybe more personally,
Yeah.
what's one small habitual judgment you make every day that you could try just for a little while to let go of, just to see what happens? What would it take to join them, even for a moment?
Something to think about. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.